I thought I knew every sound my baby could make. But last night, through the monitor, I heard a grown man's voice whispering to her. When you have a newborn, sleep becomes this fragile, precious thing. My daughter Emma was only 6 months old, and my nights were a constant cycle of light dozing. Jolting awake at every rustle, every breath through the baby monitor. Usually it was reassuring, the soft static, the occasional gurgle, the tiny sighs, proof she was safe in her crib upstairs. But one night, at around 2:30 a.m., I shot awake to something that froze me completely. Through the monitor, I heard a low voice, a man's voice. She, go back to sleep. I sat upright in bed, heart pounding so hard it made my vision blur. For a few seconds, I just stared at the glowing monitor on my nightstand, waiting to hear it again. And then I did. Good girl, just close your eyes. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't static. It was clear, deliberate, and far too close. I scrambled out of bed and grabbed the monitor, fumbling with the volume. Emma's crib came into focus on the tiny screen, her little body curled up, still safe. No movement in the room, no shadow leaning over her. Just her. But the voice came again. Whisper so close to the microphone it felt like it was right in my ear. You're not alone. I bolted upstairs so fast I nearly tripped over myself. I shoved open the nursery door, chest heaving, empty. Emma stirred a little at the sound, but she was alone in her crib. No one was there. I turned every light on in the house that night, checking locks, scanning corners, even pulling open closets. Every door was sealed, every window shut. By the time the adrenaline finally left my body, it was almost dawn. I convinced myself it had to be interference, some creepy overlap from a neighbor's monitor or a stray radio signal. That was the only explanation that made sense, except I don't have any neighbors close enough for that. My house sits on a wide lot, and the nearest home is almost half a mile away. The next night, I tried to brush it off. I even laughed at myself a little, telling friends the baby monitor had picked up ghost voices. They chuckled, called it creepy, but it felt easier to frame it as some weird electronic glitch than admit how much it had shaken me. That night, around 3 a.m., I woke again. This time it wasn't words. It was humming, slow rhythmic lullaby. Emma doesn't have a music mobile, and I hadn't sung that tune before, but it was familiar in the worst possible way. It was Rockabye Baby. And the voice singing it wasn't soft or sweet. It was deliberate. Low. Male. I stared at the monitor in horror. The camera showed Emma shifting in her sleep, her tiny fists opening and closing. But something was different. The humming stopped. Then the whisper came. Look at the camera. I swear to you, Emma's eyes fluttered open and she turned her head toward the lens. Her gaze locked onto it as though she was obeying. I shut the monitor off. I couldn't stand it. The next morning, I called the manufacturer, demanding answers. They assured me it was impossible for interference like that to occur, especially in my area. They insisted the signal was encrypted, secure. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because if no one else could connect to it, then where had the voice come from? I tried something desperate the following night. I set up my phone to record audio next to the monitor. Thought if I could just capture it, I could prove to myself it was real lore. Maybe finally get someone else to believe me. That night, I forced myself to stay awake, staring at the monitor in the dark. Midnight passed. 1, 2. My eyes were burning. And then, right at 3:07 a.m., it happened again. Not humming this time, not whispering, just breathing. Heavy, rasping breaths directly into the monitor's microphone. I held my phone in my lap, recording. What? My hand shook so badly, I thought I'd drop it, and then the voice came. You hear me, don't you? I froze, paralyzed. You can't keep her from me. The sound was so sharp, so close, I nearly threw the monitor across the room. Instead, I snapped the recording off and rushed upstairs. Emma was crying this time, thrashing in her crib, her little face red with panic. I scooped her up, sobbing myself, whispering over and over that it was okay. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't been crying because she was alone. Been crying because she wasn't T. I don't use the monitor anymore. Can't. But last night, as I finally dozed off with Emma cradled against me in my own bed, I heard it again. Not through the monitor, not through any device, but right next to my ear. That same voice. You can't keep her from me. The first picture was of me sleeping. The second picture was too. I don't take pictures of myself when I'm asleep. And yet 2 nights ago, that's exactly what I found in my phone's camera roll. It was late evening. I had just gotten back from a long shift and was lying in bed, half distractedly scrolling through my phone before setting my alarm. Out of habit, I tapped on my gallery. That's when I saw them. At first, I didn't process what I was looking at. The thumbnails were dark, grainy, but when I tapped one and enlarged it, my chest tightened. It was me. My body sprawled on the bed, my head tilted toward the wall, mouth slightly open. My hair was messy, my blanket pulled up just below my shoulders. I remember staring at the picture, waiting for my brain to tell me when I took it. Some drunken joke? Some accidental timer shot? But there was no memory because it was impossible. The angle was wrong. The photo was taken from the foot of my bed. Someone had been standing there, pointing my phone at me. I quickly swiped to the next picture. It was also of me sleeping. The only difference was that in this one, my head was turned slightly more toward the camera like I had stirred in my sleep. The blanket was a little lower, exposing more of my shoulder. I swiped again, and again. In total, there were 6 pictures, each one closer than the last. The final photo was a close-up of my face, my eyes still closed, lips slightly parted, my skin illuminated by the faint glow of the screen. Whoever had taken it had been standing right over me. I dropped the phone onto the bed and just sat there, my hands shaking, my breath shallow. I tore through the house, flipping on lights, opening every closet, yanking the shower curtain aside in the bathroom. Nothing. Every door was locked, the windows sealed. I live alone. By the time I circled back to my bedroom, I was drenched in sweat. The phone still lay on the mattress where I'd dropped it. My rational brain tried to fight back. Maybe it was some kind of glitch. Maybe I'd been hacked. But deep down, I knew better. No glitch positions a camera at the foot of your bed while you're unconscious. No hack lowers your blanket in the middle of the night. Someone had been inside. The next day, I could barely function at work. I kept replaying those photos in my mind, the growing closeness of whoever had taken them, their silence, their patience. When I got home, I did something I'd never done before. I pushed my dresser in front of my bedroom door. Wasn't much, but it was something. That night, I fell asleep, clutching my phone in my hand, its flashlight set to max, like a makeshift weapon. I woke up groggy the next morning, sore from the tension of sleeping so stiff. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it all, that maybe the photos had been there for months, and I'd just noticed them. But then I opened my gallery again. There were more pictures. This time, there were 10 of them. In the first, I was lying exactly as I had been when I fell asleep on my side, clutching the phone. By the 5th photo, the flashlight had been turned off. By the 7th, my arm was slack, the phone gone from my grip. The final image wasn't of me, it was of the ceiling. My ceiling. Taken from the middle of the room, like whoever had taken it had stepped back, tilted the phone upward, and snapped one last picture before leaving. I threw up in my sink that morning. The realization that they had not only been there again, but had taken the phone from my hands while I slept it, was too much. I don't remember driving to work that day. I don't remember speaking to anyone. All I remember is dreading the night ahead, so tonight I decided I wouldn't sleep. I've been sitting here in the corner of my bedroom with every light on, my back pressed against the wall, watching my bed. It's nearly 3 a.m. now. My phone is on the floor in front of me, recording. Part of me doesn't want to look until morning. Part of me knows I won't be able to resist. But just a few minutes ago, as the house settled into silence, I heard it. The quiet click of my phone's camera. Not from the device in front of me, from the darkness just beyond the edge of the light. The scariest thing I've ever seen wasn't a shadow or a figure at my window. It was the note waiting for me on my kitchen table. I live alone in a small 1-bedroom house just outside of town. It's not the kind of place where much happens, and that's exactly why I chose it. Peace and quiet. Safety. That night was like any other. I had gotten home late from work, heated up some leftovers, and collapsed onto the couch to watch TV. By the time I finally dragged myself to bed, it was close to 2 a.m. I remember locking the front door, checking it twice like I always do, and then heading to my room. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt wrong. But when I woke up the next morning and stumbled into the kitchen half asleep, I froze. Sitting on the middle of the table was a piece of paper. Note. My stomach dropped before I even touched it because I knew one thing immediately. I hadn't left it there. My first thought was maybe I had been too tired the night before and forgotten. But as I stepped closer, the neat block letters stopped me cold. It said, "I like watching you sleep." The handwriting wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I knew. What made it worse, the note was resting directly on top of my house keys. That meant someone had been inside. I backed out of the kitchen slowly, every hair on my body standing on end. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Any explanation that didn't mean what it clearly meant. Had I left the door unlocked? No, I remembered locking it, deadbolt and all. I checked the windows, every one of them was still latched. I didn't call the police right away. Told myself maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was overreacting, but deep down, I knew. Someone had come into my house while I was asleep. Someone had stood close enough to place that note right where I'd find it. That entire day, I couldn't concentrate. At work, I kept replaying it in my head. The image of those words written in sharp, deliberate strokes. By the time I got home, I was sick with dread. So the note was gone. I don't mean I moved it. I mean when I got back, the table was bare. The paper, my keys, it had all been neatly arranged on the counter instead, as if someone had tidied up after me. I barely slept that night. Every sound of the house settling made me sit up, straining to hear footsteps that never came. The next morning, there was another note. This one was shorter, almost playful. "Did you see me?" I stood in my kitchen, holding the paper with trembling hands, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I couldn't convince myself anymore that it was some kind of prank. Whoever was doing this wasn't trying to scare me away. They were enjoying it. I called the police then. Finally, 2 officers came out, searched the house, looked for signs of forced entry.
Ow.
Nothing. No prints. No scratches on the locks. Nothing. They suggested maybe it was someone I knew with a key, but no one had a copy. No one. The officers left with sympathetic looks, telling me to call again if anything else happened, as if that would help me sleep. That night, I triple-checked every door and window, pulled every blind tight, and left the lights on. I even dragged a chair against my bedroom door. It didn't matter. At 3:14 a.m., I woke up to the unmistakable sound of paper sliding against wood. The kitchen table. I lay frozen in my bed, staring at the ceiling, barely breathing. I wanted to move, to scream, to run, but fear pinned me in place. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but eventually, exhaustion took over. When I woke with the morning sun spilling into my room, I prayed it had been a nightmare. But on the kitchen table was another note. "You look peaceful when you dream?" I didn't eat. I didn't go to work. I sat on the floor of my living room all day with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife like it would help. That was 3 weeks ago. The police stopped coming after the second call. My friends think I'm losing it. I've thought about moving, about burning the whole house down if that's what it would take. But I can't bring myself to leave. It feels like whoever's doing this, they wouldn't let me, because last night was different. When I woke up, there wasn't a note on the table. There wasn't one by the keys, or the counter, or anywhere else. It was just a single piece of paper folded neatly, resting right on my pillow. I don't know how I didn't wake up when it was placed there. I don't know how long they stood over me, but I know what it said. Tonight I'll stay longer. As I sit here writing this, every creak in the house makes me flinch. The blinds are shut, the doors are locked, the knife is in my hand again. But I know it doesn't matter, because whoever is leaving those notes is already inside. I used to think windows were nothing more than glass between me and the world outside. But the night I saw him standing there, I realized they could feel more like a trap than protection. It was a little past midnight when I decided to shut everything down for the night. I lived alone in a small second-floor apartment. It's a kind of place that felt cozy but a little too quiet once the TV went off. Outside, rain streaked down the window in uneven lines, tapping softly like fingers. I didn't bother drawing the blinds yet. Being on the second floor, I always assumed I was safe. I remember sitting on my bed scrolling through my phone, the glow casting faint light across the room. That's when I noticed something strange. At first, I thought the rain was playing tricks on my eyes, a darker patch against the glass, something that didn't belong. I leaned forward, squinting. It wasn't the rain. There was a face. A man was standing outside my bedroom window, staring in at me. My body went cold in an instant. My apartment had no balcony, no fire escape. The only thing outside that window was open air, yet he stood there, soaked from the rain, unmoving. His hand pressed flat against the glass, as though testing it. I scrambled backward, heart hammering in my chest. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. His face was partially hidden by the shadows, but I could make out the wet strands of hair plastered to his forehead. Then, slowly, he tilted his head to the side in an unnatural, almost curious way. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and fumbled to dial 911. The operator answered. But before I could get words out, I glanced back at the window. He was gone. I ran to the glass, yanked the blinds shut so hard I nearly tore them off the frame, and pressed my back against the wall. I whispered to the operator what had just happened, that someone was at my window. They promised to send a patrol car. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor clutching my phone, every creak of the building making my chest tighten. When the police arrived about 20 minutes later, they searched the area. They told me they didn't see anyone outside. No footprints in the muddy ground beneath the window, nothing. One of them asked if I'd been drinking or maybe had a nightmare. Tried to insist, but I could see in their eyes they didn't believe me. Eventually they left, and I was alone again. The silence afterward was unbearable. I tried to tell myself it was over, that maybe I had imagined it. But the next morning, when I finally found the courage to open the blinds, I saw something that made my stomach turn. On the outside of the glass, smeared through the condensation, were two words, written with a finger. Look again. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of paranoia. I barely slept, barely ate. Every sound made me flinch. I kept the blinds shut tight, but I couldn't stop myself from peeking out every so often. That was when I realized something. Across the street, directly across from my apartment window, was another building. An office space that had long since closed down, its upper floors dark and empty, or so I thought. One night around 2 a.m., I woke to a strange sensation, like I was being watched. Against every ounce of common sense, I crept to the window and pulled the blinds open just enough to peek out. And there he was. Not outside my window this time. Across the street, the abandoned building. His silhouette stood in the darkness of a second-floor window facing mine directly. I dropped the blinds, heart slamming in my chest so violently I thought I might pass out. My breathing came fast and uneven. He had moved. He wasn't just a one-time intruder. Whoever he was watching me. For the next several nights, it became a twisted routine. Exactly the same time. If I dared to look, I would see him in that same spot across the street. Always staring, always waiting. I tried to record it, thinking I could finally prove I wasn't crazy. But every time I lifted my phone to take a picture, the window across the street was empty. Nothing but shadows. Then one night it escalated. I woke up to tapping. Slow, deliberate taps against the glass. 3, pause. 3 more. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I reached up and pulled the blinds aside just enough to see. He wasn't across the street anymore. He was back at my window. Only this time, he was closer than before. His face pressed against the glass so tightly I could see the faint fog of his breath. His eyes wide, unblinking, filled with something that made me feel like prey. I stumbled backward, tripping over the corner of my bed. My phone slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. When I scrambled to grab it, the tapping stopped. By the time I found the courage to look again, he was gone. I called the police again, nearly hysterical. They searched, and once again they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, no man matching the description anywhere nearby. They advised me to get some rest and maybe see someone about the stress. But I know what I saw. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the window. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would make me feel safer. It didn't. Because around 3 a.m., I woke up to a new sound. Not tapping, not rain. Whispering coming from the window. I couldn't make out the words at first, but then, as I strained to hear, it became clearer. A voice, low and mocking, dragging the syllables out like a taunt. again. The sound of wood creaked as the dresser shifted slightly against the wall. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. It's been weeks since that first sighting, and I'm not sure how much longer I can take this. I've stopped calling the police. They think I'm delusional. I've even considered moving, but part of me knows it won't matter. Because last night, for the first time, I heard the whisper again, but it wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the apartment. I woke up to the sound of my own name. It was soft, almost gentle, but there was something wrong in that whisper. I've always thought of myself as someone who's fine being alone. No scary movies, no superstition, just me and the silence. That night, I had the house to myself. My parents were out visiting family, and I was enjoying the rare freedom. Music playing, dinner cooked, scrolling on my phone way too late. Everything was normal, until I heard it. I was just about to fall asleep when the room went unnervingly quiet. Even the hum of the fridge in the kitchen felt distant. I rolled onto my side, eyes half closed. And then, from the closet across my bedroom, a quiet voice called out to me. It used my childhood nickname. The one only my mom ever called me. At first, I thought I imagined it. I even let out a nervous laugh, telling myself I was too tired. But my heart was already pounding. It wasn't my imagination. That voice was real, and it came from the closet. I sat up, staring at the door. The closet was shut tight, but I swore I heard something move inside. A faint creak of wood, like someone pressing against the door from the other side. "Mom," I said out loud, instantly regretting it. She wasn't home. No one was. The seconds dragged on. Then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Unmistakable breathing from behind the closet doors. I slid out of bed, legs trembling so badly I could barely feel the floor. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't want the harsh brightness to break the fragile barrier between reality and whatever this was. I stepped closer, hand reaching for the handle. Before I touched it, the voice spoke again, the same nickname, but this time stretched out, mocking, cruel. I snatched my hand back like the handle had burned me. I didn't want to open it. God, I didn't. But standing there in the dark, knowing someone or something was just a few feet away, was worse. With a sharp tug, I yanked the doors open. Nothing. Just clothes hanging on their racks, shadows spilling across the floor. I ran my hands along the shelves, crouched to look underneath, empty. And then I felt it. Cold breath on the back of my neck. I spun around, heart crashing against my ribs, but the room was empty. I slammed the closet shut and stumbled back, mind screaming at me to leave, to get out of that room. But my body froze, sat on the bed, clutching the blanket, trying to convince myself I was losing it. That's when the light flickered once, and went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room, and through it came the sound of the closet door, slowly creaking open on its own. The voice came again, but this time it wasn't just my name. "I know you can see me," but I couldn't. All I saw was the black void beyond the door. Yet I knew something was standing there. Desperate, I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. The screen lit up, and that's when I saw it. In the reflection of the closet mirror, just behind me, stood a figure. Tall, motionless, impossible to miss. I whipped around. Nothing. The room was empty. I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake until the sun came up, phone in hand, flashlight on, watching the shadows shift, but never reveal anything else. When my parents came home, I said nothing. How could I? Since that night, I keep the lights on when I sleep. And sometimes, even with the light burning bright, I still hear it. That voice, whispering my childhood nickname, louder each time, closer each time. And here's the worst part. A few weeks ago, my mom admitted something. She told me she hadn't actually called me by that nickname out loud. Since I was little, she only ever thought of it in her head, which means something else has been listening to her thoughts. And now it's calling for me. It always comes at 3:07 a.m., 3 slow. It's deliberate knocks that make your blood run cold before you even open your eyes. I live alone in an old townhouse at the edge of the city. Nothing special, just a quiet street. Neighbors who keep to themselves, and creaky floors that echo in the dead of night. The first time it happened, I was drifting between sleep and wakefulness. Half conscious when I heard it. Knock, pause, knock, pause, knock. At first, I thought it was the wind, or maybe the old pipes settling, but the rhythm was too deliberate, too steady, like someone was counting. I sat up, heart hammering, and glanced at my clock. 3:07 a.m. My stomach sank. The knocks didn't come from the front door. They didn't come from the walls. They came from inside my apartment, my bedroom door. I froze, unable to move. I could hear the faint scratch of nails against wood, each knock resonating in my chest. The first night I told myself it was a dream. I must have been half asleep. I drifted back off, pretending it didn't happen. The next night, same thing. Exactly at 3:07, 3 slow knocks on my bedroom door. This time, I stayed awake. I pressed myself against the headboard, listening. The knocks stopped after a few seconds, and silence fell. I waited, ears straining, heart pounding. Nothing happened. No one came in. I didn't hear footsteps. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was standing just beyond that door, watching me. By the third night, I was terrified. I couldn't sleep. I'd moved my bed against the door, put a chair underneath the handle, but none of it mattered. At 3:07 sharp, it came again. Knock, knock, knock. I held my breath, waiting. Then a whisper, "Open, now." I couldn't move. My limbs were heavy, paralyzed. The whisper came again, soft, rasping, like it had been breathing through the crack of the door. "You're mine." I bolted out of bed and threw open the door. Empty hallway, no shadows, nothing. Just the creaking floorboards settling in the stillness of the night. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the couch, lights on, clutching a kitchen knife, staring at the door like it could spring to life at any moment.
After that,
I couldn't ignore it. I set up a small camera in my bedroom, pointed at the door, hoping to catch whatever it was. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the time tick by, dreading the inevitable 3:07, and then it came. Knock, knock, knock. I froze, clutching the blanket to my chest. The camera's red recording light reflected in the darkness. I held my breath. The knock stopped. Silence. My heart thumped so loudly I thought it would echo in the microphone. Then, faintly, I heard it, a soft scraping sound, coming from the other side of the room. I whipped my head toward the window. Nothing. I turned toward my closet. Empty. I turned toward the door. Still nothing. And then I noticed something on the floor. A small, wet footprint. It's not mine, not any shoe I own. Bare, but smeared across the carpet, as if someone had stepped through water and walked across the room without a sound. I backed up, tripping over the blanket, and pressed myself against the wall. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every creak a threat. I started losing track of nights. Every day felt like a haze of exhaustion and fear. I avoided going out. I didn't answer the door. I barely ate. And every night, 3:07 a.m., knock, knock. Sometimes the whisper, sometimes nothing, but always the feeling that someone was inside, waiting, counting, watching. Last night I tried something desperate. I called a friend over just to stay awake with me. 2 of us sitting in the living room, lights blazing, TV on for noise. 3:07 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. My friend froze. Then the whisper, right in my ear. "You can't hide." My friend screamed and ran for the front door. I bolted after them, didn't look back. We didn't sleep, we didn't speak. We left the townhouse that night and haven't returned. The locks, the doors, the alarms, it didn't matter. Because I know it's still there, waiting, and I know it will come back. At 3:07 a.m., knock, knock. Always 3. Always at 3:07.